face it, folks. Let's focus on the double whammy that UConn just delivered us. I don't know if you read this over the weekend in the Hartford Courant, but it's a pretty expensive story. Is that the state auditors just reported that the downtown Hartford branch of UConn actually ended up costing an extra, get this now, hope you're sitting down, $30 million to build. Sorry, taxpayers, but I'm among you. Now, the second part of the story, as if that wasn't bad enough, is that on the very same day that this auditor's report came out, UConn health officials went hat in hand before the legislature asking for $174 million of taxpayer bailout because they can't control their costs at UConn Health. Is this unbelievable or what? Good morning. It's 7:11. Gary Byron here on this 15th day of April. Glad to have you on board the morning train at 11 minutes after the hour of 7. Our first guest into the Daily Connerton Memorial Company interview chair joins us every other Thursday morning. He is the Senate Republican leader. Let's welcome back to the show State Senator Kevin Kelly. Senator, good morning. Oh, man, I'm just ducky. How about yourself? Yeah, I guess so. I was a little dismayed, though, when I was reading the Hartford Courant over the weekend and in the story I was just telling you about, where UConn, man, they can't get their finances in order here. And when I was up there as well with you for a couple of terms that I was there for, it was the same scenario. You know, they overspend.
Basketball, but what's disappointing is that same level of excellence that the fans expect on the basketball court obviously doesn't happen with their finances. And where we look for overachievement with our girls and boys basketball teams, they underperform with the sacrifice the taxpayers make. And when you start to peel away the layers of this, you look at a $30 million overrun, but there were 280 some odd change orders to get there. There were countless times where they could have said, nope, we're not doing this. And instead they didn't. Continued to build, they continued to spend. And then when you look at UConn Health, I mean, nobody disputes the quality of the care that's done at that hospital. It's the management. Well, it's the cost.
Yeah.
It's the finance that people take exception to. And the big issue here is you've got doctors earning six figures.
Yes.
And what's really breaking the back of that hospital is it's uncompetitive. Their legacy costs, their pension and I'm going to say fringe benefits that they give to doctors are 3 times what is a competitive hospital will give its doctors. And the taxpayers pick up the tab for that. And in this case, the governor's given them $50 million. At the same time, he's turning around and putting a $50 million tax on middle-class Connecticut's insurance policies. That's not fair.
Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what specifically the president of UConn and UConn Health receive, but I know that they're paid, you said 6 figures, they're paid extremely well to manage their institution's finances. It's their job to do that. That's their job. But when they just throw their hands up in the air and say it's out of their control, oh my goodness, how about taking some accountability for what you're getting paid to do?
Yeah, I mean, in that case, you're looking at salaries well over $500,000.
That's just asinine.
And they're asking, then the governor comes and asks, middle-class Connecticut, my community, with a median income of individuals at about $38,000 a year to pay more for their insurance premiums because we're spending $50 million over on UConn Healthcare. And that's just, budgets are about priorities. Mm-hmm. And what we see here is that the middle class is dying 1,000 cuts from the weight of little tax here, little tax there, but these aren't little. $50 million means something in towns like Stratford. $100 million tax on gasoline, $100 million tax on trucks that deliver food to our grocery stores. We are going to see cost of living in unaffordable Connecticut go through the roof. And it's all because of Democrat policies. And the middle class, we're going to make sure the middle class hears this message, because I think when they hear this message and sit around their kitchen table, they're going to see it the way that we see it, which is it's just breaking their back.
Senator, who oversaw the construction of the Yukon Hartford branch?
I don't know the exact developer.
I'm just wondering if that person's going to have to answer the question about this extra $30 million overrun. It's our money that they're spending.
Well, it is our money, and when the auditors pointed this out, I mean, Yukon pointed and said, well, our board of trustees reviewed this and they thought it was appropriate. Now, the problem with that statement, Gary, is that it's not the board of trustees that run, I'm going to say, the general fund, the state's general fund. That is the job of the legislature. That's what the auditors were looking at. And it's the sacrifice made by Connecticut taxpayers that they were spending. And this is one of the issues, is that, we've got to get that responsibility back under the Capitol dome. The Democrats for the past 7 or 8 years have been looking to offload many of these responsibilities in quasi-public agencies and with, entities like Yukon, and say, well, the legislature had no control over it. The university or the quasi-public will say they had no control over it. But yet every April 15th, and this year it's going to be May 17th, the Connecticut taxpayer still has to pony up the cash.
That's right.
And the state still comes back to the middle-class taxpayer and say, well, nobody else that handles your sacrifice is going to take care of that. But you have to make sure that you are responsible and file your taxes on time.
Jeez.
And once again, it's just, It's not fair.
I was looking into this. Apparently there were over 283 change orders on that Yukon Hartford branch project. 283. And those changes, Senator, they cost money. We should know who requested these and why. I mean, it seems almost criminal. And my question to you, Senator Kelly, what if something like that happened in the private sector? That person is in charge of oversight. They would be fired immediately, wouldn't they?
Well, sure. And let's look at it from a personal perspective. You're doing a home improvement project.
Yeah.
And you open up the wall, and if you've ever done a home improvement project, it's not uncommon to open up the wall and find, oh, here's a problem. I got to fix this along the way. But what happens when you do that in your real life is it's an opportunity to look at it, to evaluate it, say, do I have the money to do that next step? Or maybe while I'm fixing the bathroom here, maybe I'm not going to get the original sink I wanted. I'm going to have to cut back and get a different sink because I've got this problem here. In other words, Gary, they had 280 opportunities to stay within budget,
right,
to make adjustments, to value the sacrifice made by Connecticut taxpayers. And apparently in every opportunity, they chose, oh, I'm going to pay for this and keep the sink. I'm going to keep adding to the cost of the project. And we know when we do projects in our house, we have a budget. And we need to stay on budget or it's going to break the family budget. Apparently, Yukon just said, no, we're going to continue to spend it and spend. And, this, I think the original cost on this was supposed to be about 75 million.
Yeah.
And a 30 million overrun. That's significant. It's a 50% overrun. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's extremely irresponsible. We are speaking with our Senate Republican leader, Kevin Kelly. Let's just going back to the Yukon Health thing. The CEO of Yukon Health, we're looking into this. He makes a pretty handsome salary. It's about $750,000 a year plus benefits to. Now, this is to oversee Yukon Health's finances, but hold on here, folks. He basically, just to keep this in perspective here, this gentleman came in before the legislature this week to tell you that he's powerless to control these costs. Well, I don't know why he wasn't laughed out of the room. Your thoughts on that, or?
Well, I mean, who is responsible, and why isn't that person sitting in front of the General Assembly explaining what went on? It's just an unacceptable answer that, somebody making $750,000 can't answer to the legislature. If he's not the person responsible for that, then who in the organization was? And a person that's at the top making that type of money should at least know the answer to that question. If it's not him, then who?
No, thank you. Should. You're right. And as UConn Health CEO, while he's begging for $174 million more in taxpayer bailout money, he actually said UConn Health is a major economic driver. What? He can't even pay his own bills, but he's an economic driver. Let me get this. Is this? I can't make heads or tails of this, Senator.
Well, once again, I don't think the argument is, toward care or what that facility means. What we're looking at here is the taxpayer's sacrifice. And when we see the cost overrun and the amount of money, and this is what I'm saying is, this is an individual making $750, okay? And he doesn't know who's in charge or who was responsible. But then the governor comes back when people making that type of money in this economy don't know what's going on. He comes back to people in my community making a median individual income of $38,000, saying, you know what, you're going to have to pay a tax on your health insurance because I needed $50 million to bail out UConn because people earning $750 couldn't balance their budget. You're going to need to balance yours. And the average health premium in Connecticut is over $2,000 a month.
Wow.
So this isn't fair. When you look at it, who's the people that are responsible making this sacrifice for the benefit of our state? Constantly, the Democrats look to at the end of the day, UConn doesn't know who's responsible for the overrun. But at the end of the day, the Democrats in the majority are going to say, well, the middle-class taxpayer is going to be responsible to pay for that. And that's not fair.
No.
The middle class is counting and watching its pennies to make sure it can balance its budget and put food on the table for their family. And I will point out, Gary, that we have food insecurity and we still have food lines in the state of Connecticut 1 year after this pandemic.
It's true,
it's
Kev.
as if
You're right.
The Democrats are tone deaf and to the people of the middle class and the daily lives, what they have to go through to make it through a day in Connecticut. And then you see somebody earning the six-figure salary that we just discussed who doesn't know who's responsible for a $50 million.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head. This is it's incredibly irresponsible. Let's move over to now Storrs itself. UConn's president is apparently powerless, or at least appears not interested in controlling these costs either.
Well, we've got.
You're talking about well-paid guys. Yeah, these are well-paid individuals, and their only solution is to come before us, the taxpayer, to cover these costs. This is what's frustrating. This is what our listeners get frustrated about when they call me during open phones, Senator. It's just irresponsible spending, wasteful spending over these overruns, and especially with somebody making these $750,000 salaries. It takes. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted you to answer the question, but I'm so frustrated that. Oh.
Exactly.
Well, and let's not forget, tuition costs keep rising and rising, right?
Well, and this is, once again, whether we're looking at UConn, the cost of Connecticut is unaffordable. I think this is one of the number one issues that I see, that I hear from my constituents, whether we're talking health care. People were promised affordable health care. It has been anything but. Whether we're looking at the governor's gas tax, that's $100 million tax on gasoline. There's going to be a $100 million tax on trucks to deliver our food to the supermarkets. You keep looking at across the board, everywhere you go, the cost of living in Connecticut continues to go up.
Yeah.
And at some point, middle class Connecticut voices need to realize that this is the Democrat playbook. It's got a bullseye on the middle class wallet, and they need to know that this is going on and that the Democrats in Hartford are not helpful to what they experience on a daily basis.
These taxes in and of themselves, a nickel here, a dime there, a buck there, a quarter here, in and of themselves, you sit there and go, okay, taxes are a fact of life. I like safe bridges and tunnels as well. And there's a lot of needy people out there, and those who are elderly that we must take care of, our education system. It's not so much that people are anti-tax. It's overtax. It's a heck of a burden when people are right now having a hard time rubbing two nickels together. It never. Go ahead.
It never ends, Gary.
No,
it never ends. And the governor puts the gas tax. He goes, it's a small tax. It's only a nickel. But he's asking whether it's a nickel, a gallon, or a quarter gallon. He's asking for $100 million, and that's a lot. And that's the problem here. And you got to put it in perspective. Not only are they asking for more, but Connecticut is dead last in job growth, dead last in income growth. So it's not like the middle class when the governor comes up and says, I'm going to grab an extra nickel out of your on a gallon of gas, and that's going to cost you an extra $500 or $1,000 a year. It's not like you're going to walk into your boss today and say, you know what, the governor's raising gas and nickel. You got to give me a raise, an extra $1,000. It doesn't work that way. And the Connecticut Democrats aren't creating an economy so that if a Connecticut family's taxes increase, they could go down the street and get another job that pays more money so that they can put the food on their table for their family and maintain their status of life. That's the problem here, Gary. Yeah. The Democrats aren't giving the people of Connecticut the opportunity to perform and the opportunity to get ahead. And their economy is what's keeping middle class in its place. And then these tax policies knock them down.
Yeah, and it's one tax, like you just mentioned, Senator. It's one tax after another after another. We have a person who's listening to this on the broadcast on Facebook Live, David. He says, sure, there's no accountability. They don't care how they spend. The taxpayers get fleeced again. And you know what? We're getting sick and tired of it. There's only so much that, that we can take. The middle class, I mean, we talk about it all the time, Senator. We're getting squeezed right out of the state. We don't want to leave, but it's, we don't have much opportunity here. It's unaffordable.
Well, I hear the middle class screaming uncle.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm making sure that their voice is heard at the Capitol.
Listen, we appreciate all that you do. We really do. And listen, I've been up there. I've never walked in your shoes, but I've been up there side by side with you on many occasions. And it's an uphill battle, particularly when we just don't have the votes. We don't have the numbers. We can fight like hell. We can claw, we can scratch, we can kick and scream. But, but at the end of the day, the Democrats rule the roost. They have the majority in both chambers and the governorship. So, listen, Senator, keep up the good fight. You're doing an outstanding job. I know it's tough, but you can never give up the fight. We believe in it too much.
And the Connecticut middle class is worth fighting for, Gary.
Without a doubt. I completely agree with you. And we'll be right there, right by your side all the way. Senator, thank you for being with us. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. How's that?
You bet. Thank you.
You got it. I appreciate it. All right. That's our Senate Republican leader, Kevin Kelly. Your phone calls are